Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to work with some warm and natural again. We're going to make some more Christmas tree ornaments, and these will be oversized ornaments. And this is what the bag looks like. I used to get this from Walmart most of the time because most of the time they had it in. This is a quilt batting. Lately though, Walmart hasn't had it in. And so I just ordered this from Amazon, and I will include that link in the description. Now the size that I ordered here is 45 inches by 60, and of course they come much larger than this, but that can get pretty pricey. So this is usually the size that I order, and there's actually quite a bit. You can make several crafts out of this one. As you can see, this is good and sturdy, but I just love the look of it. It just adds so much to a lot of the ornaments. Now the first ornament that I'm making is this little gingerbread man, and I just cut a pattern out of some cardstock. This one I just freehanded, but there is pictures. All you have to do is go on Pinterest and type in gingerbread pattern or gingerbread drawing, and you'll have all kinds of things that you can print out if you don't trust yourself to draw this. So I cut two of these out, and now I'm going to take it to my machine and stitch the two together, leaving an opening on the head. So I'm just going to stuff this with some polyfill and trim all the excess from the seams, and then stitch up the head. Now some of you like to use the eraser on a pencil to stuff small items like this, but as long as they're small enough to use my finger, it just seems I can feel more what I'm doing, and this one was small enough for me. So I'm just going to take some polyfill and make sure I go into all of those limbs there, and then into the body and the head. And then once I get it stuffed the right amount, now I don't want this overstuffed, but I want to make sure that everything has some polyfill in it. And then once I get it stuffed, then I can take it back to the machine and make sure that I put some pins in it to keep it closed and to keep that stuffing inside, and then stitch that back together. Now this is going to be seams exposed, and if you don't want your seams exposed, then in all the little areas where you turn a curve, you need to make sure that you make some little clips up to the seam there, so that it will turn right. But this is just the look that I'm going for. I want these seams to show, so the benefit from that is it's much easier. So here I am making sure that I get that pinned where it needs to be, so that the stuffing stays inside really well. And because this is not overstuffed, it's easy enough to go to stitch with the machine. As you can see there, where I stitched right above this arm, it left a little opening, but that's not a problem at all because it's in a good place. I'm going to be tying something around the neck, so I just hot glued it back together. And that's also another option that you have if you don't want to machine stitch or even hand stitch this, then you can always just use hot glue. Now I could have heavily coffee stained this because that's very easy to do, and I want that gingerbread color, but I decided to take some pine cone, and that is a Dixie Belle color, and mix about a tablespoon or two in probably a half cup of water. And then I'm just going to brush this all over it. Now, it goes on darker than it dries, but it does add the color that I need for this. So the thing about this is it's going to saturate it, so you're going to have to wait on it to dry afterwards. I put mine in an oven on low heat and just watched it closely and let it dry that way. But you could just let it dry. You could put it outside and let it dry, or even just wait and let it dry all day. Now obviously you want to do both sides of this. Now I said that I'm doing ornaments. This one I'm not doing as an ornament, and although it could easily be used for one, I'm just going to use this one to gift. And the reason I say gift is because a lot of times we don't really know what to get someone, maybe a neighbor or something, so we give them something baked or cooked or something like that. And I think this would go really well with baked goods. Maybe you could bake some gingerbread cookies and use this in your packaging. Now I like to make sure that I get the seams really well because as you can see here, they show up really good if they're not painted. So just make sure you go all around and get those seams. I also cut out 2 of 3 other shapes. I did a mitten, a star, and I did a primitive star for that, and a stocking. Again, I freehanded my shapes, but these are very readily available online to print out. Now I needed these to be coffee stained, and generally I take most of my warm and natural and go ahead and coffee stain it before I cut it up, but I didn't. I needed to go ahead and make this, so I'm just doing these after I've sewn them. Now I'm just taking some instant coffee, mixing it in water, and however much you use, that's up to you. This coffee, because I don't drink instant coffee, my youngest does, and she will buy it and then very seldom fixes it. So this one had gotten pretty clumpy, and as you can see here, I didn't get the clump stirred up well. But I'm not really worried about that because these came out darker. You're just sticking it in there and wringing it out. And they came out darker than I really wanted them anyway. So after I get all of these put in, I'm just going to take them to the sink and give them a rinse. And that should give me the color that I want and get rid of those little pieces of coffee that I don't want. And I'm not worried about the ones coffee that doesn't come off because it will fall off when it dries. Now you want to make sure that you get this all saturated. As you can see, there's a little white spot that didn't get saturated, and they will definitely show up on you when they dry. So I'm going to just wring these out, and then I'm going to do the same thing with these and put them on a cookie sheet in the oven on low heat and just watch them closely until they're dry. And here is what they look like after I rinse them. As you can see, there's still a few little bits of coffee on this one, but it will dry and fall off. So as you can see, these are very, very simple to coffee stain. You could also use tea, but I find that you get darker results from coffee. So I'm going to start with my mitten here. And as you can see, this is a very, very simple shape. But I wanted to add something around the top of this, and it's already dried at this point. I ordered this trim from Amazon, and what I don't like about it is it isn't the most simple to use on small projects because the shag just really hangs down low, and I end up having to cut some of that off. And but it does work, and if you were using these on a large stocking or something like that, then this would be perfect for that. But I'm just going to glue it around, and then I'm just going to glue even the end down and trim that, and you'll never even see that seam. And I will say that trimming this shag off is a very messy job, but it is doable. And once I got that trimmed and I was happy with the look of that, then I just very loosely stuffed it with polyfill, but I made sure to get it down in that little thumb area. And then I took some natural colored cheesecloth and tied just below where I added the fur, and then I just kind of stuffed it up in there just a little bit and let those little tails hang down. Then I just took my scissors and stuffed one of those tails through a little rusty bell and then tied that on top. And that's all that I'm going to do to the mitten, but I want to add something inside. Now, I usually like to add a couple of different types of greenery. And so I had these little faux greenery pieces that I didn't cut these off of a pick. My sister went to a yard sale and found a big bag of this stuff, and I love this greenery. It looks so realistic. So that was definitely a good find. And then I added a little sprig from the other greenery. And I want to keep this one more neutral, so I'm just going to put some little off-white berries in the top and just a couple of pine cones, and that will complete this one. Now, I haven't forgotten about the little gingerbread man. I will finish him a little later on, but I just wanted to go ahead and complete this one since I wasn't having to wait on it to dry any longer. And now, since it is going to hang on the tree, I just took a little loop from some jute twine and glued it to the inside back. And I just love how this turned out, and I love that it's neutral and it will go with most any color scheme. So here is the star, and again, this is a primitive style. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it actually, if a primitive star is perfect, it doesn't look very primitive. So I'm just going to stuff this well, and this one I want stuffed just a little bit more than the other ones because I'm not going to be adding anything inside this one, of course. It's going to be completely closed, and I'm just going to make a star ornament out of this. As it turns out, when I stuffed this, I didn't get it fully stuffed the way I wanted. One of these little points was a little bit floppy. And once you sewed this together, it's really hard to fix that unless you cut into it. But with this fabric, it's very forgiving, and so I just cut into that front. I'm going to be adding an embellishment to this. So what I did was I'm just going to add that embellishment over this slit that I'm making here. And then I'm just going to take something and kind of poke that polyfill back in that corner well, and then I can just glue that back together and add my embellishment over the top of that. So I'm using a paintbrush and my finger to stick that back in there, but again, a pencil with an eraser would do really well. And there I have that little slit, but it's just going to be so easy. I just put some hot glue there and kind of pinched it together, and yes, I'm using low temp glue, so I didn't burn my fingers. But I just put that on there, and now I will cover it up with my embellishment. All of these could very easily be done with either muslin fabric or even drop cloth would work really well on them. Now I just cut, because I want this to be very primitive, I just cut a little piece of some cheesecloth, and this is natural colored cheesecloth, and I'm just going to glue it right on that, and I made sure to concentrate some more of that glue back in that little cut. And I don't want to lay that flat. I like that messy look. And then I'm just going to add some buttons and make a hanger out of some jute twine. And I'll just take a little length of jute twine and tie a knot in each end, and then glue it to the back of the two top points. Now, obviously, you can get as elaborate as you want to on these stars. You can just add all kinds of embellishments if that's what you like. But when it comes to primitive, I think that simpler, for me, seems to be better. So I just didn't want to add too much. So I just put a few little buttons there on top of that cheesecloth. And then I will add that hanger to the back. And now this is just going to be a simple little star ornament. Again, you can just add whatever you think looks good. And now I'm back to the little gingerbread man. So he's dry and stitched together, and I've trimmed all the seams. And now I'm ready to embellish him. So first I tied a strip of fabric and some jute twine around his neck, and I just tied it in a couple of knots. I'm not going to try to put a bow on that or anything, but I do want to tie something onto that jute twine. And what I'm going to do is just add a couple of little rusty bells to it. And because I don't like the sharp edges when you cut it, that strip of fabric, I roughed those edges up a little bit with the scissors. And now I'm threading these little rusty bells onto my jute. Now these bells were just regular bells, and I somewhat rusted them. I didn't really leave them in long enough, but it still makes them look old. They're just not completely rusted. And now I can just kind of glue that down there to lay the way I want it to. Now at this point you can add whatever you want. If you like a face on yours, I feel like for me a face will keep it from looking quite as primitive. I have definitely done some with faces, but I just prefer them to be faceless. But if you want to, you can definitely add a face. You can even add some of the little scalloped painting at the bottom of his arms and at the top of his head and the top of his feet. And that adds a lot to make this look like a gingerbread man. But again, I just wanted to keep mine very, very simple. Now for the last one, I'm going to make this little stocking. Now again, this is a very, very simple stocking. And I know there are different shapes, so just choose which one you like the most. But I've got mine sewn together and the top of it left open. And then I'm going to stuff this loosely with some polyfill. Now I cut a strip of the Warm and Natural fabric that I glued on the inside there. I should have sewn that, and I should have coffee stained this also. I'll have to go back and coffee stain that, but for now, for video's sake, I'm just going to go ahead and glue that in, and then I'm going to very lightly stuff my stocking. Now I don't want this one to be stuffed very heavily at all, because I want it to look more like a somewhat empty stocking that just has some things hanging out of the top. Now I pulled that hanger out there because I wanted to glue it a little further back in. I felt like it was a little bit too long. But now I am going to stuff my little stocking. And once I have enough in it, then I can start adding some things into the top. Now I wanted to add one more substantial thing down in the top. So I'm taking these little plastic candy canes, and I ordered these from Amazon, and I will include that link in the description. And I've cut some strips of this Warm and Natural fabric and completely cover that candy cane. Now I haven't coffee stained this one, but I'm just going to leave it not coffee stained because I'm going to add some trim to this that's this color, and I wanted to kind of bring it together. So you just completely wrap this, and I'm kind of double wrapping it here because I want it to be a little bit thicker than it is. And then once I get it covered with the Warm and Natural fabric, then I'm going to go back and add some stripes. So here I am using that same shaggy trim, and I'm going to glue that around the top just like I did with the little mitten. Again, this is very messy, but it does work. I think probably a better option, though, would be some sheep wool or faux sheep wool. Now, once I get this all glued on, then I'm going to go through and trim everything up just the way I did with the mitten. Now, as I'm looking at this, I'm deciding that maybe I want to go back and coffee stain that little loop, which will take a little bit of being careful not to get it on the fur, but I do think it would probably look better if I go ahead and coffee stain that little loop as well. Now here I am adding the stripes on the candy cane, and it's very important when you're doing this that you start at a slant so that it will your stripe will be slanted. Otherwise, your candy cane will look kind of funny. And then once you finish your stripe, you're going to add a dab of hot glue to that bottom, and then you're going to clip that off and add a little bit more hot glue to secure it well at the end. And then once I secure that and cut that end off, I'm just going to slide it down into the back of the stocking. I can't really force it down through that polyfill, so I just put everything else in on top of the polyfill except for that candy cane. And then I just kind of glue it in place as I go. This is one of the areas that you can get very creative and just put whatever you want in there. I do recommend that you don't put anything too heavy, because unless you put some weight in the toe of your stocking. And I want to keep the warm and natural part of this very simple also. So all I'm going to be adding to that is just, I have some old rusty safety pins that I ordered from Amazon, and I'll try to find that link and add it. I'm not sure, I've had these for so long, but I'm just going to force that through there. That rust keeps you from being able to put it through quite as easily, but it still works. And then I'm going to put a Rusty Belle on the safety pin. And that's all that I did to that one. Now, I had a viewer who asked, first of all, if the Shabby roses that I make can be made with ribbon, and would I do that on camera for her. So I told her I would try to remember to add it to my next video, and this is the one. I was very limited on ribbon that I had because my things are stored in the garage and I couldn't really get to it well, but I had this one. This is not really a favorite for this because the back side of this is different from the front, and this is kind of a stiffer one, but it still doesn't matter. You can make a Shabby rose out of most anything, but you're just going to glue that to the center after you tie a knot in the end, just exactly the way that you do with the torn fabric. And with this one, you just have to be a little bit more creative when you twist it to keep that back side from showing. And I think I let it show up in a little place or two, but it still ended up working. So if you're using just a regular satin ribbon, you're still just going to twist. And the more you, the tighter you do it, the more or the less dimension you're going to have. You want to kind of do it a little bit more loosely and just kind of push it up together, and that will create some height and dimension. Now I'm going to use a small lace ribbon. See, here's where it gets kind of tricky for me. I'm using some lace ribbon, just the really small lace ribbon that you get from the Dollar Tree on the next one. And it is very small, so it's going to make a very small, flatter Shabby rose. So if you want one with some height, you're going to need a thicker ribbon like this. But as you can see, you just keep twisting until you get the rose the size that you want. You don't have to go the full length. I'm starting with cardstock here, if I didn't mention that. And it doesn't have to be any particular shape because you're going to be cutting all the excess off. And you can actually keep wrapping this until that's completely covered, and even past that if you want to, but you don't want any of that showing. So when you get done making it, then you're just going to cut all that excess away. Again, this is very simple as long as you use a ribbon that's the same on both sides. And as far as twisting, you're just going to twist whatever way you want to twist. If you need at some point to twist back the other way, then you can do that. But you just need to start making these, and once you start making them, just get creative in what you're going to make them out of, and you'll see that you can make them out of most anything. And now I'm showing you one out of that thinner lace ribbon. Again, you start with that knot in the end. You glue it to the center of your cardstock, or you can use a little square of cloth or a little circle of cloth, and then you're just going to keep twisting and gluing. Again, this one is going to be more of a flatter one because this is a very small ribbon. As you can see here, I'll twist it one way, and then when I feel like I need to turn it, I just twist it back the other way. You can keep twisting in the same direction as if you want, but I just find that the more you change the direction of your twisting, the more it creates dimension in your flower. And then here you're just going to trim off all your excess, and you'll have a tiny little shabby rose. I know these roses were kind of random, but again, someone asked to see these made. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.